made lurid and false claims about the royal family, which played on her fears and fueled paranoia, displayed woeful incompetence when investigating complaints.
Camilla is about to be kicked out of the royal family after hidden footage caught her at Diana's memorial, quietly sabotaging the event. For years, there have been rumors that Camilla never wanted Diana to rest in peace. Even after marrying Charles, the whispers never stopped. People believed she wanted Diana erased from royal memory. This time the rumors became proof. The camera caught what words could not hide. When William saw the footage, he was forced to act immediately. But what exactly did the footage show? And why did it push William to take action against Camilla? The triangle that destroyed a family. The relationship between Diana, Charles, and Camilla had been doomed from the very start, poisoned by the fact that Charles had never truly let go of his feelings for Camilla when he married Diana. Charles had met Camilla years before Diana entered his life, and they had fallen deeply in love despite the obstacles that made marriage between them difficult at that time. When circumstances pushed Charles toward marrying someone more suitable for a future king, he chose the young and innocent Diana Spencer. But his heart remained with Camilla, and he could not make himself feel for Diana what she desperately needed and deserved from her husband. Diana discovered the truth about Charles and Camilla early in her marriage, when she found evidence of their ongoing contact and emotional connection. She confronted Charles about it, and he admitted that he cared for Camilla but insisted that he was committed to his marriage and his duty. Diana tried to believe him and to make the marriage work despite knowing that she was competing with another woman for her own husband's affection. She threw herself into her royal duties and into being a mother to William and Harry. She worked hard to be the perfect princess that everyone expected, but nothing she did could make Charles love her the way he loved Camilla. The affair between Charles and Camilla continued throughout his marriage to Diana, carried on through secret phone calls and private meetings that Charles thought were hidden from his wife. But Diana knew. She always knew. The knowledge ate away at her self-esteem and her mental health. Diana suffered from depression and eating disorders as she struggled with the pain of being unloved by her husband. She made several desperate cries for help that were dismissed or minimized by the royal family, who cared more about maintaining appearances than about Diana's genuine suffering. Charles was torn between his duty to Diana and his children and his genuine feelings for Camilla. He tried to be a good husband and father, but his heart was never fully in it. He resented Diana for not being Camilla. He found Diana too emotional and needy compared to the woman he really loved. Charles convinced himself that he was the victim in the situation, trapped in a loveless marriage and unable to be with the woman he truly wanted. He did not see or acknowledge how much he was hurting Diana through his emotional abandonment and his ongoing affair. Camilla waited patiently in the background throughout Charles and Diana's marriage. She maintained her relationship with Charles through secret communications and occasional meetings. She provided the emotional support and understanding that Charles felt he could not get from Diana. Camilla believed that she and Charles were meant to be together, and that eventually circumstances would allow them to be open about their love. She did not seem to feel guilt about her role in destroying Diana's marriage and happiness. In Camilla's mind, she and Charles had loved each other first, and Diana was the interloper who had temporarily come between them. The tension between the three of them became unbearable as the marriage deteriorated and the truth about Charles's affair became more widely known. Diana gave a famous television interview where she spoke about there being 3 people in her marriage, making it quite crowded. The public was sympathetic to Diana and angry at Charles and Camilla for the pain they had caused the beloved princess. The royal family was deeply embarrassed by the scandal and the public airing of private matters. Charles and Diana's divorce was finalized in 1996, ending a marriage that had been dead in all but name for years. The triangle of Diana, Charles, and Camilla destroyed more than just a marriage. It damaged the monarchy's reputation and created deep divisions within the royal family. William and Harry watched their parents' marriage fall apart and understood from a young age that their father's relationship with Camilla was the cause of their mother's unhappiness. The boys loved their father, but they also deeply resented Camilla for the role she had played in breaking up their family. They saw how their mother suffered, and they blamed both Charles and Camilla for that suffering. Diana tried to protect her sons from the worst of the conflict and to help them maintain a good relationship with their father despite everything that had happened. She never spoke badly about Charles to William and Harry, though she certainly could have done so with justification. Diana wanted her boys to love both their parents and to not have to choose sides. But William and Harry were not blind. They could see what had happened, and they formed their own judgments about who was responsible for their mother's pain and their family's destruction. Diana's tragic death and the boys' devastating grief. The news came in the early hours of a Sunday morning in August 1997. Diana had been in a terrible car crash in Paris. Charles was immediately informed, and he woke William and Harry to tell them that their mother had been seriously injured. The boys were frightened and confused as they waited for more information about Diana's condition. Then came the devastating news that Diana had passed away from her injuries. William was 15 years old, and Harry was just 12 when they learned that their mother was gone forever. The shock and grief were overwhelming and immediate. Charles tried to comfort his sons, but he was dealing with his own complicated feelings about Diana's death and struggling to know how to help the boys through such an impossible loss. William and Harry clung to each other as they tried to process what had happened. Their mother had been alive just hours ago. They had been planning to see her soon. Now she was gone and they would never see her again. The reality seemed impossible to accept or believe. They kept hoping someone would tell them it was all a terrible mistake. The days that followed were a nightmare for William and Harry. They had to deal with their private grief while the entire world watched and commented on every aspect of the tragedy. Diana's death dominated news coverage around the globe. People everywhere were crying and mourning for the princess they had loved. Flowers and tributes piled up outside royal residences. The public grief was enormous and genuine, reflecting how much Diana had meant to millions of people who had never even met her. The funeral was the worst day of William and Harry's lives. They had to walk behind their mother's coffin through the streets of London while enormous crowds watched and cameras broadcast every moment. William later said that no child should ever have to do what he and Harry were forced to do that day. The image of the two young princes walking behind their mother's coffin, their heads bowed in grief, became one of the most heartbreaking and iconic images of the entire tragedy. The world wept for the boys who had lost their mother in such a public and traumatic way. William and Harry struggled enormously with grief and anger in the months and years following Diana's death. They missed their mother terribly and felt the enormous hole her absence left in their lives. Diana had been warm and affectionate with them in ways that Charles was not. She had made them laugh and had understood them in ways that seemed effortless. She had been preparing them for their futures as royals, while also trying to give them as normal a childhood as possible. Now she was gone and nothing could fill the space she had occupied in their hearts. The boys also felt enormous anger that grew stronger as they got older and understood more about what had led to their mother's death. Diana had been fleeing from photographers when the crash occurred. But William and Harry knew that Diana would not have been in Paris that night if she had still been part of the royal family. She had left Britain and the royal life partly because of the pressure and partly because of the pain of seeing Charles move on with Camilla. In William and Harry's minds, their father's affair and the breakdown of the marriage had set in motion the chain of events that ultimately led to their mother's death. William and Harry blamed both Charles and Camilla for their mother's unhappiness and for the circumstances that had put her in that car in Paris. They could not forgive Charles for choosing Camilla over their mother. They could not forgive Camilla for pursuing Charles despite knowing he was married with children. The anger William and Harry felt toward Camilla was deep and lasting. They saw her as the woman who had helped destroy their family and who had contributed to the conditions that led to their mother's death. The trauma of losing Diana at such young ages shaped both William and Harry profoundly for the rest of their lives. William became more serious and reserved, taking on the weight of his future responsibilities at an earlier age than anyone had expected. Harry struggled more openly with his grief and anger, acting out in ways that generated negative publicity during his teenage and young adult years. Both brothers carried wounds from their mother's death that never fully healed. They both dedicated much of their adult lives to continuing Diana's charitable work and keeping her memory alive. Camilla's rise and her secret campaign against Diana's memory. Years after Diana's death, Charles finally achieved his goal of marrying Camilla in 2005. The wedding was a private civil ceremony rather than a grand royal wedding because of the circumstances of their relationship and the sensitivity around Diana's memory. Camilla became the Duchess of Cornwall and slowly began taking on more royal duties and responsibilities. She worked hard to rehabilitate her public image and to gain acceptance from people who still blamed her for Diana's suffering. It was a long and difficult process, but Camilla was patient and determined. When Queen Elizabeth passed away and Charles finally became king after waiting his entire life for the role, Camilla achieved the position she had been working toward for decades. She became Queen Consort, the highest-ranking woman in the royal family. The promotion to Queen Consort represented the ultimate validation of Camilla's long journey from scandal and public hatred to acceptance and respectability. She had finally achieved the position she believed she deserved as Charles's wife and partner. But despite her new title and status, Camilla remained deeply insecure about Diana's enduring legacy and continuing presence in the public consciousness. Even though Diana had been dead for over 25 years, people still remembered her fondly and spoke about her with affection and admiration. Diana was still considered by many to be the people's princess, beloved for her warmth and her charitable work. Her image remained popular on everything from commemorative plates to magazine covers. Her sons spoke about her frequently and worked to continue her legacy through their own charitable efforts. Camilla hated living in Diana's shadow. She felt that Diana's memory prevented people from fully accepting her as Queen Consort and from giving her the respect and recognition she deserved. Camilla believed that as long as Diana remained such a powerful presence in people's minds, she would always be compared unfavorably to the late princess. She needed to find a way to diminish Diana's memory and step out from under her shadow once and for all. This obsession with eliminating Diana's legacy became the driving force behind many of Camilla's decisions and actions. Camilla began a quiet campaign to systematically erase Diana from royal family history and memory. She started by canceling or reducing support for charitable patronages and initiatives that had been important to Diana during her life. Camilla would claim that these causes were outdated or that resources needed to be redirected to more current priorities. She worked to remove Diana's photographs from prominent positions in royal residences, arguing that it was time to focus on the present and future rather than dwelling on the past. She discouraged conversations about Diana and became visibly uncomfortable whenever Diana's name was mentioned in her presence. Camilla tried to redirect attention and resources away from causes that Diana had championed and toward initiatives that would be associated with Camilla instead. She wanted to be known for her own charitable work rather than always being compared to what Diana had done. Camilla developed programs focused on literacy and domestic violence that were legitimate causes, but that also served to create her own identity separate from Diana's shadow. She carefully managed her public image and worked with communications staff to ensure that coverage of her activities emphasized Camilla's unique contributions rather than drawing comparisons to Diana. William and Harry began noticing the changes that Camilla was implementing. They saw their mother's patronages being reduced or eliminated. They heard less and less mention of Diana in official contexts. They observed photographs of their mother being removed from places where they had hung for years. The pattern became clear, and their anger grew as they realized that Camilla was deliberately trying to erase Diana's memory and legacy from the royal family. William and Harry felt that this was the ultimate disrespect to their mother and an insult to everything Diana had accomplished. William was particularly upset because he had worked hard to continue his mother's charitable legacy and to keep her memory alive through his own work. He had always made sure that Diana was credited and remembered for the causes she had pioneered. To see Camilla systematically dismantling that legacy felt like a personal attack on Diana and on William's own efforts to honor his mother. He tried to push back against some of Camilla's changes, but found that as Queen Consort, She had significant power to implement her agenda despite William's objections. Harry had his own complicated relationship with royal life and had eventually stepped away from working royal duties. But he remained deeply committed to Diana's memory and legacy. He spoke about his mother frequently in interviews and worked to continue her humanitarian efforts through his own charitable foundation. Harry was horrified by what Camilla was doing to erase Diana from royal history. He felt that Camilla had not earned the right to touch anything related to Diana's legacy, given the pain she had caused Diana during her life. The tension between William and Harry on one side and Camilla on the other grew stronger, as Camilla's campaign against Diana's memory became more obvious and aggressive. The brothers felt that they were watching their mother be erased and disrespected by the very woman who had contributed to her unhappiness. They both wanted to fight back and protect Diana's legacy, but they were not sure how to effectively counter Camilla's power and influence as queen consort. The situation was heading toward a confrontation that would force everyone to take sides and reveal their true feelings about Diana's place in royal family history. The battle over Diana's memorial service. As the anniversary of Diana's death approached, plans were being made for a memorial service to honor her life and remember her contributions to charitable causes and to the royal family. These memorial services had become an annual tradition that allowed people to reflect on Diana's legacy and to show that she had not been forgotten despite the passage of time. The services were usually simple and dignified, held at locations that had been meaningful to Diana during her life. William and Harry always made sure to attend these memorials no matter what else was happening in their lives. This particular year was a significant anniversary of Diana's death, and plans were being made for a larger and more public memorial service than usual. The event would be held at a prominent location and would include readings and musical performances that reflected Diana's interests and values. Representatives from charities that Diana had supported were being invited to attend and to share their memories of working with the princess. William and Harry were both planning to speak at the service and to share personal reflections about their mother. When Camilla learned about the plans for Diana's memorial service, she was deeply unhappy about the attention and emotion that would inevitably surround the event. She went to Charles privately and urged him to cancel the memorial, arguing that it would only bring up painful memories from the past that everyone had worked so hard to move beyond. Camilla told Charles that constantly commemorating Diana made it impossible for the royal family to move forward and prevented proper respect for Camilla's position as queen consort. She said that she should be the focus of attention and respect as Charles's wife, rather than constantly living in the shadow of his deceased first wife. Charles listened to Camilla's complaints and understood her frustration with always being compared to Diana. He genuinely wanted to support his wife and help her feel secure in her position. Charles had spent years defending Camilla and working to gain public acceptance for her. He did not want to undermine all that effort by appearing to prioritize Diana's memory over Camilla's feelings. He was torn between his desire to support his current wife and his understanding that canceling Diana's memorial would be extremely problematic. Charles knew that the British people still loved Diana and that canceling her memorial service would create enormous anger and backlash. Even after so many years, Diana remained beloved, and her memory was cherished by millions of people who had admired her warmth and her charitable work. If Charles canceled the memorial at Camilla's request, people would blame Camilla for disrespecting Diana's memory. The negative publicity would be terrible, and would undo years of careful work to improve Camilla's public image. Charles could not risk that kind of damage to the monarchy's reputation. Charles told Camilla that he could not cancel Diana's memorial service because it would create too many problems and would generate the kind of public anger that the royal family could not afford. He tried to explain that the memorial was not about diminishing Camilla or suggesting that Diana was more important. It was simply about honoring someone who had been important to the family and to the nation. Charles asked Camilla to understand and to accept that Diana would always be remembered, and that trying to erase her memory would be both wrong and impossible. Camilla was furious that Charles would not support her wishes and cancel the memorial. She felt betrayed and insulted by his refusal to put her feelings first. Camilla believed that as queen consort, she should have enough influence over Charles to get him to do what she wanted. The fact that he was refusing her request showed that Diana still had power over Charles even in death. This reality made Camilla even more determined to find a way to diminish Diana's memory and to assert her own position as the most important woman in Charles's life. If Camilla could not convince Charles to cancel Diana's memorial, then she would find another way to ruin the event and to tarnish Diana's memory. She began developing a plan that would cast doubt on Diana's character and would make people question whether the late princess deserved the adoration and respect she continued to receive. Camilla wanted to plant seeds of suspicion and scandal that would grow and spread and eventually destroy the idealized image that people had of Diana. If she could not erase Diana from royal history, then she would rewrite that history to make Diana look bad and to diminish her legacy. Camilla knew that she would have to be careful and subtle in how she implemented her plan. She could not be seen as directly attacking Diana's memory because that would backfire and generate sympathy for Diana and anger toward Camilla. Instead, Camilla needed to work behind the scenes and create situations that would cause others to question Diana's character without Camilla's involvement being obvious or traceable. She began thinking about how to plant false information and create a scandal around the memorial service that would damage Diana's reputation while keeping Camilla's hands clean. The stage was being set for a confrontation that would expose Camilla's true feelings about Diana and her willingness to go to extreme lengths to escape Diana's shadow. William and Harry had no idea what was coming, but they would soon be forced to confront the reality of just how deeply Camilla hated their mother and how far she was willing to go to destroy Diana's memory even decades after her death. Camilla's cruel campaign to sabotage Diana's memory. Camilla began her campaign of sabotage in the dark early morning hours when no one else was around to witness her actions. She carefully arranged dead and rotting flowers at the site where Diana's memorial service would be held in a few days. The flowers were wilted and brown with an unpleasant smell. Camilla positioned them prominently where they would be noticed by the staff members who would arrive later to begin setting up for the ceremony. She wanted the dead flowers to create an ominous and disturbing atmosphere around the memorial. When palace staff arrived and discovered the dead flowers, they were shocked and disturbed. No one could understand how such inappropriate flowers had ended up at the memorial site. Some staff members were superstitious and began whispering that the dead flowers were a bad omen. They wondered if Diana's spirit was unhappy about something or if there was dark energy surrounding the upcoming memorial. Others were simply confused and concerned about who would do such a disrespectful thing. The story of the dead flowers spread quickly among palace staff and created exactly the kind of unsettling atmosphere that Camilla had hoped for. But Camilla was not satisfied with just leaving dead flowers. She wanted to do more serious damage to Diana's reputation and memory. She began writing anonymous letters filled with horrible and completely false accusations about Diana's character and behavior during her lifetime. The letters were carefully written to sound as though they came from someone who had known Diana personally and who was finally revealing the truth about the princess after years of staying silent. Camilla made sure the handwriting could not be traced back to her by using her non-dominant hand to write the letters in an unfamiliar style. The letters contained vicious lies about Diana's personal life and her relationships with her children. Camilla wrote that Diana had been unfaithful to Charles with multiple lovers throughout their marriage. She claimed that Diana had used her children for public sympathy, but had not actually cared about them as a mother should. The letters suggested that Diana had been planning to abandon William and Harry and run away with one of her lovers before her death. Camilla invented details that sounded plausible enough that people might believe them, even though they were completely untrue. Camilla made multiple copies of the letters and left them in places where palace staff would find them and read them. She put copies in the staff break room, in the mailroom, and in other common areas where people gathered and talked. She knew that once staff members read the letters, they would gossip about them and spread the information further. Camilla wanted the rumors and accusations to spread throughout the palace and beyond, until everyone was talking about the supposed secrets of Diana's life that were finally being revealed. The plan worked exactly as Camilla had hoped. Palace staff members found the letters and read them with shock and fascination. Some people were skeptical and thought the letters were obvious lies designed to hurt Diana's reputation, but others were not sure what to believe. The letters seemed detailed and specific enough that they might contain some truth. Staff members began whispering to each other about what they had read. They debated whether the accusations could be true and who might have written the mysterious letters. Soon, everyone in the palace was talking about the letters and the terrible things they said about Diana. The rumors spread from the staff to other members of the royal household and eventually to people outside the palace who had connections to those who worked there. The gossip took on a life of its own as people added their own theories and speculations to what the letters had claimed. Diana's reputation was being damaged exactly as Camilla had intended. People who had thought of Diana as nearly perfect were now wondering if there had been a darker side to the princess that had been hidden from public view. Camilla felt deeply satisfied as she watched the chaos and controversy her letters had created. She had succeeded in casting doubt on Diana's character without anyone suspecting that she was behind the campaign. The memorial service was still scheduled to proceed, but now it would happen under a cloud of scandal and rumor. People would be thinking about the accusations in the letters rather than focusing entirely on honoring Diana's memory. Camilla believed she had struck a blow against Diana's legacy that would have lasting effects. But Camilla's satisfaction was premature. She had been so focused on executing her plan that she had not thought carefully about the possibility that she might get caught. She had underestimated the sophistication of palace security and had not realized that her movements were being recorded by hidden cameras. She had also badly underestimated William and Harry's determination to protect their mother's memory and to uncover the truth about who was spreading such vicious lies about Diana, the hidden camera that revealed the truth. William and Harry arrived at the palace several days before Diana's memorial service was scheduled to take place. They always came early when possible so they could oversee preparations and make sure everything would honor their mother appropriately. This year was particularly important given the significant anniversary being marked. The brothers wanted to be involved in every detail to ensure the memorial would be meaningful and respectful. They were immediately struck by the strange and tense atmosphere in the palace when they arrived. Staff members seemed nervous and uncomfortable around them. People were whispering in corners and falling silent when William or Harry approached. The brothers sensed that something was wrong, but they did not initially understand what had created this odd mood among the palace staff. They asked several people what was going on, but received only vague and evasive answers. Finally, one of the younger staff members, who had always been particularly loyal to William, told him privately about the dead flowers that had been found at the memorial site and about the anonymous letters that had been circulating with terrible accusations about Diana. The staff member showed William one of the letters, and he felt sick to his stomach as he read the vicious lies about his mother. He immediately showed the letter to Harry, and both brothers were devastated and furious that someone would spread such cruel falsehoods about Diana. William and Harry demanded to know who had written the letters and who had left the dead flowers. They wanted to find whoever was responsible and make them answer for attacking Diana's memory with such horrible lies. The palace staff had no answers because the letters were anonymous and no one had witnessed who left the dead flowers. But William and Harry were determined to discover the truth. They would not allow these attacks on their mother to go unanswered or unpunished. William contacted the head of palace security and demanded that all security camera footage from the past week be reviewed immediately. He wanted to find out who had accessed the memorial site and who had been in areas where the letters had been left. The security director was initially hesitant because reviewing all the footage would be time-consuming and might reveal private activities of various palace residents. But William insisted and made clear that finding whoever attacked Diana's memory was his top priority. The security team began the painstaking work of reviewing hours and hours of footage from cameras positioned throughout the palace and grounds. They looked at footage from the memorial site and from the various locations where letters had been found. Most of what they saw was routine and unremarkable, just staff members going about their normal duties. But then one of the security analysts spotted something shocking on footage from very early in the morning several days earlier. The footage showed a figure approaching the memorial site in the pre-dawn darkness, carrying what appeared to be dead flowers. The person looked around carefully to make sure no one was watching before quickly arranging the flowers and then hurrying away. The security analyst enhanced the image and zoomed in to get a better look at the person's face. What he saw made him immediately call for his supervisor. The person in the footage was unmistakably Camilla, Queen Consort. She was carrying dead flowers to Diana's memorial site and placing them there deliberately before sneaking away. The security team continued reviewing footage and found even more damning evidence. Another camera had captured Camilla sitting alone in a private room late at night, writing what appeared to be letters. The footage showed her laughing to herself as she wrote, clearly pleased with whatever she was composing. She made multiple copies of what she had written and then carefully placed them in various locations around the palace where staff would find them. The footage provided absolute proof that Camilla had orchestrated the entire campaign against Diana's memory. The head of security immediately brought the footage to William and Harry. The brothers watched the clips in stunned silence as they saw Camilla planting the dead flowers with an evil smile on her face and writing hateful letters about their mother while laughing to herself. They had suspected that Camilla might be involved because of her known resentment toward Diana. But seeing actual proof of her deliberate cruelty was shocking even to them. They watched the footage multiple times, unable to fully process what they were seeing. William felt rage building inside him as he watched Camilla desecrating the memorial site and writing lies about Diana. This went beyond simple jealousy or resentment. This was active malice toward a woman who had been dead for over 25 years and who could no longer defend herself. Camilla had deliberately tried to destroy Diana's reputation and turn people against her memory. The cruelty was breathtaking and unforgivable. Harry was equally furious and wanted to confront Camilla immediately. He wanted to show her the footage and force her to explain herself and to face consequences for what she had done. William agreed that they needed to confront Camilla, but he wanted to think carefully about how to handle the situation. They needed to make sure that Camilla faced real punishment for her actions and that she could not escape accountability or minimize what she had done. The brothers decided that they would confront Camilla together and that they would make sure their father Charles was informed about what Camilla had done. Charles needed to see the footage and understand that his wife had engaged in cruel and vindictive behavior toward the mother of his children. William and Harry prepared themselves for what would certainly be an ugly and painful confrontation, but they were determined to get justice for their mother and to make sure Camilla paid a price for trying to destroy Diana's legacy. Camilla's punishment and desperate pleas. William and Harry went directly to Camilla's private sitting room where they knew she would be at that time of day. They did not announce their visit or ask permission to see her. They simply walked in and closed the door behind them. Camilla looked up in surprise at the unexpected intrusion. She started to greet them but stopped when she saw the expressions of cold fury on both their faces. She immediately sensed that something serious was happening. William pulled out a tablet device and played the security footage showing Camilla leaving dead flowers at Diana's memorial site. He watched Camilla's face carefully as she saw herself on the screen. Her expression went from confusion to shock to something that might have been fear. When the clip ended, William played the second piece of footage showing Camilla writing the hateful letters about Diana and laughing to herself. The evidence was undeniable and devastating. Camilla had been caught completely and there was no way for her to deny what she had done. William's voice was ice cold as he asked Camilla how she could do something so cruel and vindictive to a woman who had been dead for more than 2 decades. He demanded to know what she hoped to gain by spreading vicious lies about Diana and by trying to ruin the memorial service. Harry added that Camilla's behavior was disgusting and unforgivable. He said that what she had done proved she was exactly the terrible person they had always believed her to be. Camilla's response shocked both brothers even more than her actions had. Instead of apologizing or showing remorse, Camilla became defensive and actually doubled down on her attacks against Diana. She told William and Harry that their mother had not been the saint everyone pretended she was. She said that Diana had been manipulative and calculating and had used her children for public sympathy without genuinely caring about them as a mother should. She claimed that Diana had been planning to abandon William and Harry before her death. William felt his anger explode at Camilla's continued cruelty toward his mother. He told Camilla that she had no right to speak about Diana at all. The final cruelty crossed a line that could not be ignored. For years, William and Harry had tried to stay silent. They had endured private pain, public pressure, and quiet anger. But this time, what Camilla did felt different. It felt deliberate, it felt cruel, and it felt like a direct attack on their mother's memory. When the video footage reached them, both brothers were stunned. They watched it in silence. Every second made their hearts heavier. This was not a rumor, it was not palace gossip. It was clear proof. At that moment, William and Harry reached the same decision without speaking. This could not be handled quietly anymore. They went straight to Charles. The meeting was tense and cold. William placed the footage in front of his father. Harry stood beside him, silent but firm. They told Charles everything. They explained why this was unforgivable. They reminded him of Diana, of her pain, and of the promise that her memory would be protected, not erased or mocked. Charles watched the video alone. When it ended, the room felt heavy. He knew the truth could no longer be hidden. The damage was too public, too serious, and too painful. For the first time, Charles had no way to defend Camilla. As king, he was forced to act. Charles made a decision that shocked the palace. Camilla was stripped of most of her royal positions and patronages. Many of the roles she had spent years building were taken away almost overnight. It was a punishment meant to send a clear message. Some actions had consequences, no matter who committed them. Camilla was devastated. She broke down in private. She begged. She pleaded with William and Harry, asking them not to destroy everything she had worked so hard to achieve. She spoke of loyalty, of sacrifice, of the years she had endured criticism to earn her place. But William did not soften. He looked at her with a cold calm and told her the truth. He said she deserved every part of the punishment. He said her actions showed no respect for Diana, no care for their pain, and no understanding of the damage she caused. He told her that protecting their mother's memory mattered more than protecting her title. Harry said nothing. He did not need to. For the first time, Camilla understood something clearly. Power could be taken away, titles could disappear, and some wounds, once reopened, would never heal.